Hello everyone. Today I'm joined by two incredibly talented sisters whose work spans storytelling on screen and storytelling in real life. Amira and Wafa Tajreen are the creative forces behind 730 Films, with projects that have traveled from Sundance and Cannes to cultural spaces here in the Middle East. But this creativity doesn't just stop at film. They're also the co-founders of Lulu and the Beanstalk, a restaurant and culture space here in the heart of Dubai that's as much about community and connection as it is about food. I'm so excited to dive into their journey as sisters, as artists, and as women building something incredibly powerful in both film and culture. Amira, Wafa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
It's been such a pleasure to have you, and the fact that you've been able to make time, given that it's Lulu's birthday today. We really appreciate it.
Coincidentally.
Any big celebrations in mind for Lulu today?
Not really. I think we're just celebrating that we've made 3 years just for ourselves. And we did a bit of a cookie giveaway for our regulars. Well, actually, all our customers. But yeah.
Oh, nice. We know that you're the director and Wafa is the producer. So how did you guys fall into these roles? And do you think there's some personality attributes that make you well suited for these respective roles?
Hugely. Sure, yes. Very separate. We don't do each other's jobs. I think that was the strongest thing that we sort of set as a boundary. And because I've got, and I'm going to talk about it a lot and I won't as well, is because I've got ADHD, I've got severe rejection sensitivity. So when we first started working together, Amir was like, we've got to keep the roles split and separate because that's how we will engage fully in our strengths. And at the time I was like, well, she just doesn't want me to give her creative tips. But it was the most powerful thing I think that we set as a precedent in working together was, clearly defining our roles and setting those boundaries. But to answer the first part of your question is, Amira's always wanted to be a director since she was a teenager, and she'll tell her story about sort of where that journey started. And, she went to university with the intention that one day she will be a filmmaker. And she didn't go to film school, she went to art school. I, on the other hand, sort of fell into the filmmaking side accidentally or inadvertently. I did an undergrad in economics in Dubai, and that's when our family moved here. So it was easy for me to just be here. And then I'd always wanted to be a journalist. That was my dream, my passion. I got the opportunity to do my master's, and then I ended up doing a master's in media studies and journalism, went to South Africa. Amira and I lived together, and I think that's the beginning of our bond. She was very reluctant that I was following her, I ended up going anyway. It was good.
You probably followed her to all the birthday parties when you were younger.
Yes,
so it's only
we did.
When
she
they
did.
insist,
I was like, now I have to go be friends with her friends for us. So then I come back to Dubai. It's 2008-9. It's it's that time, and it was hard to get work in journalism. There wasn't a lot of jobs going. The world was going through it. It was the recession at the time, and then I fell into a production job through a connection of Amira's, and she nurtured me, this director, an owner of a company, and to becoming a producer. And I fell in love with it just by working with her. And then that ended, and Amira was graduating around the same time that ended. And I was like, let's work together. Why don't I produce you since you want to get into film? And she says she took 3 weeks to think about it. I think it was 3 months.
It was 2 weeks, I know that.
If you insist.
If we both insist. And then, we discussed it over the period of time, and we ended up deciding, okay, let's go for it. And we did a project together in Kenya. This was back in 2011, and it worked out.
Talking about in terms of career highlights, is one of those was Marea de Tierra, when you guys took it to Sundance, and what a big moment. It's not easy to have your work showcased into these big festivals. So what was that like for you as a director, Amira, to do that? And how did that impact your visual thinking going forward? Because then you also went on to work on really big commercial projects as well.
I think, obviously it's huge. That's what every director's dream is, right? Get your film in Sundance. And we had tried years before to apply with other films, and we didn't get in. And then Marea came into our lives. And I say our lives, even though Wafa didn't produce it. The way it came into our lives was also a beautiful story, because we were in Locarno in Switzerland pitching at the festival, pitching for our feature film, which we're still trying to make. And this kind of came as a segue. And that was the beginning of the Sundance chapter, for us, and for me in particular, as a director. So Marea got in, it was amazing, like super humbling. You're sitting on the table with Werner Herzog, who's like, hi, I'm Werner. And you're just like, yeah, I know who you are. And, Robert Redford's sitting across from you too. And you're just like, oh, wow, we're in these rooms now. And you're just like, okay, cool, I guess we're doing something right, you know? And sometimes you don't even realize it was so cold, we were jet lagged. You're just like, I don't know where I am right now.
And we're singing this Best Western.
We're sitting at Best Western eating like pancakes from a box. Erica Badu's on the street, so we're giving her a hug. Like, it's really wild, you know? So these are all your wildest dreams coming true.
We had lunch, remember, next to Richard Linklater.
Yeah, Richard Linklater is behind us.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
these are the things we've like
Almost like surreal, right? Like
Yeah.
jet
So
lagged
surreal.
and cold.
In Utah, yes.
Oh,
in Utah. And it was such a blessing. And you're just like, wow, okay, cool. I'm allowed to sit at this table, right? And then that went on to become the director's labs for me. And that's where our journey with Sundance began, because they selected the feature film, which at the time was called Hawa Hawa, and now it's called Birth Song.
you changed the name.
Yeah. So it's called Birth Song now.
I'll
and
try not to be too disappointed by that.
the film is still in there and the character is still called Hawa Hawa. And so that became like, that's when you're now really in the inner circle of like these people you grew up, like, these are my heroes. And, you know, Robert Redford died a few days ago, and like, he was huge. Like, he sat down with me and was just like, yeah, this is what you should do. And this is what I think. And you're like, oh my God, okay, cool.
And you wrote your really nice note.
And he wrote me a really nice note. And I was like,
lovely.
how sweet. And you're just like, and that's, for me, was the first time I was like, oh, this is what that imposter syndrome thing is, you know? And you're just like, whoa, okay, it's cool and it's hard and it's real. And your heroes are standing in front of you. And it's very small, the director's lab, you know? It's just 8 directors are chosen from like thousands. And we go workshop our scripts and shoot a few scenes. And you get to work with like A-listers. And you're just sitting in this mountain in Utah. And you're like, okay, cool, I guess I'm meant to be here. And then that kind of propelled into getting those stars, you know, and you're like, oh, she did that, and oh, you did that, and you're just like, okay, cool. But I still, and it's funny, you know, I was just talking to a friend about it last night, and I'm like, but I'm still not where I want to be, you know, as a director, which some other people will look at it and be like, but you've directed like campaigns all over the world, and you've had your film in Sundance. I'm like, yeah, a short film that I co-directed, but this is the one, you know, the feature is still like, we have to make it. And we had a deal a year ago, and we're like, finally, we're gonna make it. And then get the call, the deal's off the table, sorry. And we're like, oh, wow, okay, gut punch, back to square one.
But it wasn't anything to do with what the project was. It was, I think it was more a financial, geopolitical powers that be issue, without saying more. Yeah.
It was a studio issue. And
it was a big studio in the US.
Yeah. And we were just like, okay, I guess this is what it also, that's the dark side of this industry, right? And you're like, okay, cool. And then we have to go to square one. But on the outside, everybody's like, yeah, but you've done this and you've done that. And they're counting your, you know, what you've done. And
well, the perceived wins is what they're counting.
The perceived wins. And I've become increasingly private on social media as well. I still have a presence, but like, I don't post my work a lot. And it's just a weird thing I'm grappling with about being on display. And, you know, sharing, they're like, but you didn't share your work. So I didn't know you're still working. I didn't know you're still a director. You're just like, I'm still here just because, you know, I'm not posting a selfie or my work every 5 minutes. So the success has been great, and I wouldn't knock it. And there's no regrets. And the failures have also been great. And
Sure.
I think there's been more failures than successes, but, you know, people just see those successes at the end. And like for commercials, I'll pitch maybe like for 50 campaigns in a year, I'll win 5, you know, but when I'm pitching and I'm working hard and I'm putting
Despite your incredible body of work,
Yep.
Yeah, but
which is world class.
Yep.
Despite that, you have, you know, that's the
reality.
There's a lot of people in the world.
Yeah, and there's a lot of directors.
It's competitive.
It's competitive, and it's also, you're playing with a bigger league.
Sure.
So the competition just gets tougher the higher you rise, right? So you also have to come to terms with that. And I think last year was my coming to terms with like, oh, so I'm not always going to win everything. And, you know, you have this period where you're just like, boom, everybody wants you and you're being picked and it's great. And then it goes quiet and you're like, did I ever even have talent, or was it just because I was cool for those 2 years?
Or they were just getting cheaper rip-off versions of you.
Yeah, and you get ripped off more. That's a big one that I've had to grapple with. I'm like, did that person just rip me off frame for frame? Yes, they did. And, you know, I'm worth this much and that person's worth that much. And, you know, the usual creative artist problems that we have to deal with.
Is equal pay an issue for women?
No, and that was also a big decision why we came back to Dubai. So we started our working relationship in Kenya and then lived between Cape Town and Nairobi for about 4 years while we developed our style of working, what stories we wanted to tell.
What industry we wanted to be in, whether we wanted to focus on commercials or film or do both. So that was that 4-year period.
Yeah, like the networking was wild at that time. So then we decided to come back to Dubai because Wafa had already had her first run here with production. So she had the contacts. And then I wanted to get more into commercial directing because one of my mentors were like, don't wait 5 years to get funding for a film. Make sure you're directing all the time. That's the only way you're going to get better. And so I was like, all right, let's do commercials, and it pays nicely and it's fun.
Pays equally here?
Pays equally. I'm paid better than most guys even. It's rank, and merit. So the equality thing is based off of that.
But I think it's a Dubai thing as well. I think that was a big driver for us. I think in Dubai, women are on parity in most roles from a top line perspective. Like we've never, at least in our industry, I can't speak to other industries, ever felt like we're getting shortchanged or we're being paid less because we're women. Whereas I think in the US and in Europe, I think female directors do struggle.
It's a big part of the conversation.
Yes, they do. Part of the world. And they do get paid less. It's been shown.
Get paid less or get less opportunities through the door. So it's like by the time I was 30, because we'd moved to Dubai, I had like all the commercials you could dream of under my rail, a car commercial, a fashion commercial, all of it, a short film. And you're just like, I was like, oh, but I had, and this was advice our mother gave us. She's like, yeah, go to Dubai. It's a safer place for you to be as women. You'll get through the door much faster, and then the world will open up to you.
It's incredible to me that, my mother never really worked, but the advice that
neither did ours.
Our mom was a homemaker from
But the advice that they give you is so relevant to this time and your situation.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it. It's incredible. What was it like for you?
I enjoy the process. I enjoy selling. That's like a really big part of my personality.
Because a lot of people would find it intimidating, to be in a sales role and to pitch. And
I don't look like your conventional, like, oh my God, who is this person? And I still, to this day, many people get surprised when I tell them who I am because I like that I surprise them. But I think ultimately the right people understand who you are, but it's not always easy.
Of course.
You've got to work at it and you've got to be consistent and you've got to be very sure of who you are.
Of course.
And you've got to be okay with the disappointments and the pushback and the disrespect even in some environments,
Right.
But I think we're lucky, we're very blessed, alhamdulillah, that we can do it together.
Yeah.
I think
film financing is tough.
It is. It's extremely hard.
I mean, especially it's a tough gig.
I think the fact that we were shortchanged on the deal that we had about 2 years ago was because we were dealing with the Western way of financing films and that disrespect towards women. I think if we'd been a bunch of like the kind of people they're used to financing, I don't think that deal would have fallen through.
Yeah, if we were guys, for sure, like they would have taken a risk faster on me as a first feature director.
Although they did, we had a whole year of deal making and development.
But like they would have fought harder to keep the deal on the table. And we've seen it, like our male counterparts who we all started at the same time, and for me, director male counterparts, all have done like at least 2 feature films in the last 10 years. Where me and the girl directors, I think only one has made 2 films out of like 4 that I know.
But I also think in the whole process, when you're talking about the sort of like the gender differences in my experiences working here or in this part of the world as opposed to America, is I've never felt less than as a producer, and I've always felt really respected in every process I've been through here. And I've dealt with the highest of the high. Whereas in this, they started to school me all of a sudden, these white guys from LA.
White women.
And women, but they're part of the patriarchy too without realizing it. And I'm like, guys, I've been doing this for almost 15 years. Like, why are you telling me your way is the right way when I've never really done anything wrong, But I had to do it their way. And there was no 2 ways about it because they believe they're better.
Right.
They truly do. I can't knock them. It's just who they are. So it was a very interesting experience. But I really, truly believe if we were men, and not to knock men, I love men. Just let's be clear. But just the way the world is set up is it's just the systems are just for them,
Of course.
Yes. So unfortunately or fortunately, this goes against us in most cases in those regards. And I just want to round that off to say that it's really refreshing to be able to work in a country like the UAE where your gender is not your first identifier as your strength. And I can truly speak to that because that's been my experience.
But also,
personally,
like it's been easier for you to get financing for male directors than for me in in independent cinema.
Yeah,
because she's walking through the door with a male director, he's just
it's a joke.
More.
I've raised money like it was a joke. So yeah, it's not an easy game, but it's a game.
Yeah.
And it's a game of perception. It's a game of like, what value can I get out of you? How do I frame you? Like, is it gonna make me look good or make me look bad? There's all those thoughts first for them before anything else. Even though the business might make sense and it will do well.
Yeah.
But the other stuff takes precedence over what the real nuts and bolts are. And it's frustrating. It's not been easy. And that's why we haven't been able to make this movie, because of these barriers.
Yeah.
And then we don't fit boxes. Again, like what Amira said earlier, is because we're Kenyan, a lot of the financing for independent cinema comes from European funds, or you have to rely on studio systems. So it becomes this like colonial experience as well in a way, because they're like, oh, so you're Kenyan, but you don't look really that black. Are you really Kenyan? Why do you speak in such a Western accent? So they're presuming privilege. You don't need money from me. So we had those barriers to entry as well. And I think when we were financing the film from a European perspective, which is why it took so long, was we never fit their boxes of what an African who needs funding should look like or be like. And then the Americans were cool because Americans are about capital and business. But then other factors came in to do with gender and geopolitics that I think affected that deal. But the most important thing is you've got to be aware. We have an awareness. Again, like I said, we're stubborn as hell. So we are not giving up. We're going to make this movie, even if we have to finance it ourselves. And then we got into the restaurant game, which was also another like, oh my God, who are these two? They were literally saying we were imposters. We were hearing people talk about.
What made you guys go into the restaurant business?
Madness.
A real moment of madness, I think.
Well, no, it wasn't madness. We obviously...
Because F&B is based in Dubai. Super, like,
we chose the hardest place to do it.
So many years ago, we were at a film festival and we were having dinner with some friends and fellow filmmakers, and we were all talking about if we weren't doing film, or when we're done with this film thing, what do we want to do? And we all kind of joked, and we finally were like, we'd love to have a restaurant one day. Like, cute little romanticize the dream of a restaurant.
But we love food and we love entertaining.
Yeah, like our house parties are legendary, and our dinner parties. And so pandemic...
Please invite me.
When we do them again, we stop doing them when we open the restaurant.
So the pandemic happens in 2020, and we were like, time to leave Dubai. We were like, we wanted to go to London. It was just better opportunity-wise. Where we were in our careers made more sense. I had representation there. I had more clients there, and we're like, okay, let's do it. Anyways, God works in mysterious ways. Pandemic happens. We're all locked up. We can't work as filmmakers, and all of a sudden we're like, how do we make money if we can't be on set? And at the time we ran a studio, a production house with two other sisters. And we were like, maybe we had the space where we could maybe have a coffee counter or just something to activate some small money. Anyways, that relationship ended, and we were like, let's do it for ourselves. And we put together this concept, called it Lulu and the Beanstalk, and decided
in memory of our grandma.
In memory of our grandma Lulu. It's an homage to her. And we were like, the pandemic kind of, in a way, that 2020 to about 2022, and we were just talking about this with somebody this morning, was like, we were all so happy. And everybody was like, in a really, like, we've survived, we're here, let's
real
be
optimism,
together,
community.
Like, everybody was on such a good vibration.
Also because the UAE handled it really well.
And they did. And we were like, cool, this is home now. God has shown us that this is home. And let's open a little cafe. And it was like just a way to make some side income while we do our films. And if something like this ever happens, at least everybody always needs coffee.
Yeah, but then our know-it-allness was like, we didn't speak to anybody in the industry. We just said, let's do it.
Yeah.
We didn't consult anybody.
It was knowing it, but it wasn't just being know-it-alls. It was also like, we're very private people. And we were like, we had an operating partner who we brought on who has the experience, has since never was part of the story before we fell off, but just before we opened. So we shop it around, we get this financier, investor to come on board, and it all just happens like super quick. Snowballs.
We get the space before we even get the investment.
Yeah, the space are like, we love your concept, we want you, go find some money. We found the money like a joke. We've been trying to raise similar financing for our film for like 10 years, and that's taking so long. So
More
this
than
happens.
10 years now.
Yeah.
More than 10 years?
Yep. maybe
But sometimes it
12
works as
years.
immediately, and then sometimes it's,
Yeah, the restaurant
takes
was
a decade.
but this restaurant was
But it's spiritual. I like to say it's spiritual. Like sometimes when God wants you to do something, you'll just do it because it's in your destiny. And so it happened. It opened. It snowballs into something way bigger than we'd imagined. But, you know, pandemic vibrations were like, yeah, cool. And it opens, and the rest is history. We're 3 years old today.
Yeah.
And
Congratulations and happy birthday to Lulu.
Thank you.
It's
And
been
it's
the
been
hardest
hard
thing.
as hell. It's been super hard.
Yeah.
The film industry is a joke in terms of like easiness for us now. It's like that what we thought was once very hard is now a walk in the park.
Yeah.
But owning a space in Dubai, one of the most competitive districts in the city and maybe world for F&B,
Absolutely.
we just kind of set ourselves up for whoa, you know, but we're here.
But what do you think does it take to run a restaurant successfully? And you've been able to do it, like, alhamdulillah, really well.
Presence, like not just our physical presence, but just a presence in everything that makes that restaurant run, from scheduling your staff to being a part of your ordering of your food to the marketing and the collateral and the creativity. Like we've got to be everywhere.
Yeah.
There's just no two ways about it. And I understand why restaurants fail intrinsically now. I can say that safely 3 years. And I believe the number one reason why they fail is because the owners or whoever the primary people are not present.
Right.
And as it gets more competitive, the industry, and there's a lot more options available around the world, because restaurateurship is very like cool at the moment and romantic, it's even more important to be present, because you've got to be able to stand out from everybody else around you who's doing the same thing in a way that can't be quantified or seen. It's a feeling, and it encompasses every aspect of the business. So we're involved with everything. I do the stock takes with my staff, like the rosters every week we're involved in, like checking the orders every single day, cash flow management. It's all we're handling. Amira does all the social media and marketing and oversees everything personally, to even the posting.
Yeah.
And then it's the negotiations with whether it's our landlords or our suppliers. We're front facing on all of that. It's the only
I've
way.
seen you guys, whenever I've been to Lulu.
Yes.
Yeah, one of us is
around.
always
Yeah, exactly.
there. Like
Yeah.
it's down to the detail. Like people will walk in and be like, "I love how it smells," and it's just. And I think that's where our background as filmmakers come in. Is like we weave universes as filmmakers, and I think that was very important. And maybe that's our difference with how we put this space together. Some of our favorite filmmakers also own restaurants, and like David Lynch had one, and.
Right.
Wes Anderson has the cafe. He doesn't own it, and he designed it. But Luca Guadagnino is opening a hotel. So it's a very similar industry because we're in service. As filmmakers, we're in service to create a beautiful world you can escape to. And in hospitality, we're in service to create a beautiful world you can escape
But
into.
it's all about creating an emotion and a feeling and a sense of familiarity.
Yeah. And
All of it is.
Like this video? Find more stories like this on the Nukta app.
No, absolutely. And also there's the sense of community around Lulu, which I find really beautiful. Also because for a lot of us, people are now, Dubai is still transient, but more and more people are laying down their roots. Like this is where home is.
Yeah.
And so with that, you're also viewing Dubai differently.
Yeah.
And your asks of Dubai have also changed.
Yeah.
Because saying, is there a cafe where I can go to?
And just
And,
feel.
where they know my name and, I can hang out and, it's something that
And that was super important to us in sort of like our inception of the whole idea was like, we want to go somewhere where people know your name. I like going to those places. I like interacting with servers, and I feel so comfortable in restaurants where the owners are around. I've always loved that. And I think that was a real conscious decision, especially for me, to always be, because I'm the apparent extrovert, even though I don't think I am. But I enjoy, because of my ADHD, I like talking. And it's good for my dopamine. So it was super important that was always going to be the case. So whether I'm busy on a shoot, Amira has to be there. If she's away on something, I definitely have to be there. When we're both available, we're there. Obviously, it was way more intense in the first year or two because we were learning. We had no experience in this industry. It was a baptism by fire. But now we're able to take a step back where we think, okay, I don't need to be here till closing on a Friday or Saturday night because, we've built that trust with our team. and also learning people. I don't think I understood humanity as well as I've now come to understand them, just because when people interact with service and food, it's true, you really understand who people are. And you know, it's been a great learning as well, and appreciation and understanding of, you know, what people are. And I think that comes from our film background, though, is like we enjoy human beings and we enjoy unpacking what humanity means in different aspects. So yeah, but it's not something I would recommend lightly to anybody. Go do film 100 times over. Just go do it, even blindly. You'll figure it out probably if you have the sort of like the drive or the chops, but not hospitality. Yeah. And not in this market. You've got to be really ready to fight.
Your Swahili Omani heritage, the fact that you guys grew up in Nairobi, at least teenage years in Dubai, and then university in South Africa. And Amira, you've spoken about this. You've described yourself as culturally disorganized and having a nowhere and everywhere home. Just talk to us a little bit about, what was that like, and how has that shaped your journey as an artist?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, we are super mixed race, like we like to say. And I think as Swahili people, we have such a rich history of, people coming together, swapping stories, whether it's a recipe or an actual story. And I think we kind of, I know we're sisters and people think, we came up at the same time, but we actually had very different trajectories into how we decided to come to work together. And I think what's intrinsic in us is we're both storytellers without more from the journalistic documenting. I want to tell stories of the people. And for me, it's more the whimsy, arty, like I want to paint my stories. And I think that was where that everywhere and nowhere inspiration or background kind of started, where we grew up cross-cultural first to begin with, before we even were geographically, crossing oceans and borders. And I think that for us growing up, if you look at our family on both sides, we're super different colors, everything. Like it's interesting how as Creoles, like we would be classified as, that's kind of the blessing and the curse that you're born with as being from such diverse backgrounds. And I think as an artist, for me, it was always important to explore that in my art, whether it was my writing or my painting and eventually my films.
And your cooking.
And my cooking, I do like to cook. But it was important to, tell this story, because from where we come from, we are definitely the black sheep of our family. And doing what we've done is like, out of question, but if you look back at like our grandma, who was a very huge anchoring force, especially in the two of our lives, the lives of the two of us, it was bravery that was at the core of womanhood for her, and I think she transferred that to us in a very beautiful way. And she crossed boundaries and broke tradition and barriers and left this tiny island she was from to go do her thing on her terms. And she did, and it doesn't look like what we're doing, but for her and where she came from, it was quite incredible. And I think growing up seeing that as like our first introduction to it, and then our mom and dad, of course, being these two, we usually joke, we have two younger siblings as well, and we always joke, it's like, where did you find us? Because we're so different from like our cousins and everybody else. And we're like, how did you raise us, and why are we like this? And this is even cousins of ours who live in like the UK and America. We're still very much
outliery.
The outliers, the wild thinkers. They're like, yeah, let's do it. And I think a big part of it, Nairobi was huge. Obviously, we were born and brought up there. When we moved to Dubai, I was 14. Wafa was like 17. I did my last 4 years of high school here. Wafa did her undergrad. And then we kind of went off into our own directions and then found each other again to start working together, like, 5-6 years later. And then Dubai becoming that city where both of us found our voices in a very unique way. It was like, oh, okay, this is where we formed ourselves. But we also went to Catholic all-girls school in Kenya, and that was huge in how it shaped
Irish Catholic, yeah.
How it shaped our sense of self and our sense of womanhood, I think, was very huge. Good and bad. I think sometimes we were too tough. But then unlearning that from the gaze of our tradition and our culture and what womanhood is as Black, African, Indian, Arab women as well, and Muslim women too. So I think that kind of then summarized itself into my work. Like I celebrated, where a lot of artists, I think, struggle to come to terms with things so polarized in their identity. I was like, this is what I love, and I like it, and I like the idea of being culturally disorganized. It's, you know, it's a bit of a joke there. It's organized now. But it is something that is so unique in how I can then present my work to the world.
I had slightly different pressures. I'm the firstborn daughter. I have neurodivergency, so I have ADHD and all these things, obviously late diagnosed, but you know. So my vision of sort of what life was probably different to many degrees than from Amira. So I had different pressures and sort of like what I needed to achieve. And I think I only understood and celebrated my diversity, my diversity of my sort of like my brain or my culture or my heritage, maybe later in life after my university years. And that's when I decided, okay, I need to embrace it more than seek and chase convention.
And also the fact that you're the eldest. Right?
And I'm the eldest.
I'm the eldest.
That typical firstborn daughter thing is real. Yeah. It's really real.
And sorry, Mira, I'm not saying that things weren't tough for you, but being the eldest.
Yeah, she's the fave, like in the typical second-born daughter fave. I'm my dad's favorite.
There's 4 of us.
But it was just, you know, it took me longer to understand how amazing and powerful it is to have all these sort of like different sort of like, you know, pathways of who you are, and to become, and I didn't realize how comfortable I was in different spaces. I'm very comfortable being around Black people because I identify as Black. And then I'm very comfortable being around South Asian people because I'm South Asian too. And I'm also Khaliji. And it took me very long to realize how important that is and how blessed I am.
What compelled you to find, you know, to set up 730 Films?
I'll let Amira answer that.
I think so she asked me to, you know, to produce me, and I said, yeah, let's do this project. It worked out. And like she said, our personalities are very much like, she's, you know, the older sister, I'm the general, and she'll like put people in line. But, you know, she's got the nurturing energy. And then I'm the la-la, let me go understand my imagination and my
But you're
thoughts.
also pretty strict and particular. You're the boss if I'm the general.
Yeah. I'm a Virgo, so I'm very particular. But
the second child is always the boss. You just let us think that we are the bosses, but really, you guys run the world.
Yeah, just quietly in the back. But like her personality is also the more gregarious, outgoing. For me, it takes me a while to be like, okay, I can talk to you. And that's the director personality, that's the producer personality, like cookie cutter, you know. And astrologically, God put us together as siblings, and they're like, okay, your paths are gonna align. And I think that's a huge part of why our roles fell into the way they did. And then we do have business chops, you know, I'm not going to sign myself off that. And we were just like, okay, I read once in an article that a Virgo and a Capricorn will always run a successful lemonade stand. And I was like, when we told our parents we're working together, they were like, what? Amira's the artist, you're not an artist. What is this madness? And it was just like
actively trying to break us up.
They were like, Wafa's meant to work at like the UN or something. And we were just like, no, like just leave it, just allow it, okay? Like it's messy and it's crazy and we know it's insane.
I think it's also the fear, because a lot of times traditionally, conventionally, you know, wisdom says that don't go into business with a family member, don't go into business with a friend.
Which is true.
Which also has truth in it.
Of course, yes.
But then we were like, but it works because also, we're also energetically very different, but it's that complementary energy where Wufa's got, you know, and she speaks openly about it, her ADHD, which makes her more like hyper-focused, hyper-energetic. And then I'm like the calmer, chill one. And you have to have that dance to like do these kind of roles. And I think it's important to speak to the power of partnership, whether it's sibling or finding the right business partner to work with. I think that builder and seller personality is so important to how you can grow as a business. And I think that was for 730, it was like, okay, cool, let's do it.
So when you guys have a conflict, which, you know, I'm sure there is, you know, creative differences, how do you guys resolve that?
We're good communicators. We were brought up in a home that was over communicative, so sometimes that's also a problem. And we have a therapist, which was Amira's idea. I think it was your idea.
Yes.
So we have a therapist we go and see.
Is it a joint therapy session?
Yeah,
Yes.
so we do sibling therapy, and she also therapises us individually. She loves it. When we walk through that door, she's like, my favorite case study. But it's important. Like we have to talk about, but also before, we didn't always have a therapist, right? So when we started out, it was very important we would send each other emails, you know, when you've done the screaming and nothing's getting through, we send each other very long emails like, this is what I meant, this is what I didn't mean, this is how we should move forward. Are you cool to move forward? Yeah, cool. And
a lot
work
of
through
time
it.
and space for contextualization and nuance. It's not easy having conflict either. We're making it sound so simple, but it's in those moments, it's hard, it's difficult, but that's our blessing, is we're very good at conflict resolution also. Circumstances as children, I think growing up, sometimes being exposed to certain things maybe made us that way. And it's not something we go looking for, but we've learned how to respect conflict and work through solutions. We've had other partners in business, and some of those partnerships have ended, and not all of them have ended well, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
But we were able to get through them with grace and respect, because I think we know how to handle disagreements pretty well, and it's equipped us to sort of be like, okay, I'm a bit more hot-headed than Amira is, so sometimes she has to rein me back and be like, we don't have to be so reactive. So I've learned that, and I push her sometimes to be like, be a bit more reactive in these moments, because it's important that they see that you're also upset or in disagreements, but just don't lose your respect or your value in that moment.
I also think conflict resolution is such a top leadership skill that is really not, because I feel like, and I've worked in the corporate sector for a very long time, it's all about alignment, but it's almost superficial alignment.
Yes.
Because you haven't really talked about the real issue,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you're so afraid to,
To go in there.
and have that hard conversation. So I feel like generally people in life, whether at the workplace or beyond, we're just not built to address an issue. You'll shut down, you'll just exit a relationship, you
Run away.
Exactly. So you have different coping mechanisms, but just staying and
Working on things.
working on it and sitting in that discomfort space, whether you're in the workplace or outside of life, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think this is such a, I've never heard of sibling therapy. I'm going to suggest it to my siblings.
Please
Maybe all
do.
4 of us should go in, because I'm a big believer in therapy. And I think that's just so important.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have that, and we've been able to transfer it into our work now. So obviously, we're gonna have anxiously attached types, neurodivergence, all the the things working for us, but we're teaching it now to people who work for us, and I think, not to toot our own horn, I don't think they've ever worked for people like us, and we're ready to dialogue and talk things out when they're difficult. Obviously, you can't save everybody, and not everybody's going to be amenable to fixing things through positive conflict. So some of them fall by the wayside, or they get fired or whatever. But the ones who are worth it or understand the value system that we're trying to create, they stay, and it's working, and we're learning. It's not been easy again, but it's been something. Amir and I are both very stubborn, so we hold on to things. So we've been able to learn this about ourselves while teaching it to others.
When you get to a certain point in your career, and as women too, we kind of just break open, and our body's like, I'm stressed, my hormones are going crazy, I don't know who I am. We have these pressures and ideas of who we were meant to be in our 30s. We're single, we're childless, our parents want grandkids, and you're like, all these things are happening, and you're like, but my career is opening up, but I was told I'm a superwoman and I can have it all, and you're like, no, actually I can't have it all, not all at once. And then she went to see her, and this was like 6-7 years ago now, and we're pretty good at upkeeping it, and she's therapized us both individually, because the sibling thing is because just because we're siblings doesn't mean we were raised, and this is metaphoric, by the same parent or parents. Yeah. Our parents are so different with each of their children, and it's, her childhood and her understanding of whatever is hers, and
therapists have talked about this, right? That not all children grow up with the same parents and have the same experiences. So if you have 4 kids, they are having completely different experiences.
Uniquely.
And it's wild.
Absolutely.
Like we see it in ourselves as siblings. And then it was like, oh, okay, cool. And then how do you and then our work is so intrinsically a part of us. It's not a day job, like I tell people, I'm like, no, directing is my purpose in life. Like, it's not my job. Like, Lulu's is not a job. It's also in some way a purpose now, it's like, which is why we fight for it every day. People are like, why are you still doing this? Isn't it hard? And you're like, yeah, it's really, really hard. And it's taken so much from us, and it's also given us so much. But I think hanging in there is something that as women, we're always taught we have a way out, and we can have a way out. It's not that we don't. And you can do the thing of like, find yourself a good guy and just chill, and you've done enough, and let's call it a day. And but then also that thing of like, but I don't want to give up that to us, and the feminism we were raised on, which wasn't necessarily the right feminism, was like, but that's giving up. And you're like, no, maybe it's just reworking my pathway on how, as a woman, I can fit into being in the workforce, or not being in the workforce. Oh, this is my version of the workforce. And I think we went into two very highly male industries, film industry and hospitality. And we were like, whoa, okay, the boys club, cool. And then we're not your conventional girls, like Barbie girls. And then men also don't know what to do with you. So you're like, no, I'm here to just sit at the table and play the same game you're playing.
But I'm not trying to be a man either.
But I'm also not trying to be a man. And I'm not cosplaying with like a masculine, badass woman. But you have to, and that's been hard, you know, finding that balance of, okay, I'm going to stay rooted in my womanhood. And I think that I give a lot of credence to our roots and our cultural roots, especially our Omani and African roots.
The therapy thing has gotten us through this. And I think I recommend it highly for any business partners even. Like it's something that if you're going to go into an entrepreneurial journey with people, you're not always going to have synergy in every moment, you know, and sometimes by getting therapized and understanding each other more intrinsically, you can actually build something more sustainable.
We'll end this with a quick rapid fire round. And my first question is to Amira. A female character in film who inspired you?
I know I'm supposed to say some deep thing like a Sofia Coppola character or something. But I think Little Mermaid was very, very inspiring because, you know, I think what I associated with, she wanted to see the world beyond her world.
A director whose work you'll never get tired of?
I think I would definitely have to say, I think Coppola, because it's very conventional. It's the conventional answer, but I think I really love how he represents men.
The first film that made you want to tell stories?
I think it was growing up, every Saturday we had to watch Bollywood films with our grandma, Mama Lulu. That was our tradition. And I think those were my first like very visceral memories of like cinema and the escape was Bollywood films, which is why Hawaii. And that was when I was like, I love it. I love the costumes. I love the music. I love the characters. I love just the world that it weaves. But then when I got into my cerebral arty self, it was Walter Salles. It was one of my biggest first inspirations in movie making. And then Sophia.
A performance that absolutely blew you away?
Which is a new one. It's like I've never thought how powerful it was. And it's also, I have to give credit to Amira here, is James Gandolfini in The Sopranos.
A guilty pleasure movie you secretly love?
It's a Disney film too.
Say it.
Aladdin. I love it.
What do you like about Aladdin?
I think it was the first time, in a very maybe toxic Disney way, but it was the first time we saw ourselves and our culture on the screen. And it came out at a time when we were living in Oman as a family. And so like our Arab identity was very much, and our Khaliji identity was coming into its formation for us and us understanding it. And I was like, oh, okay. Even though it's all the tropes that we now say are bad, but you know.
And people always say you look like Princess Jasmine in a way.
All brown girls brown girls look like Princess Jasmine, apparently. But yeah.
A book you'd love to see adapted into film?
So my favorite book of all time is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia, and it was done recently. And I don't think it was done well personally. So
I haven't watched it yet. So
I would say that even though the performances were fantastic, they adapted it into a series. You should watch it. I would say that I would redo it from a cinematic perspective in terms of the visuals and the world. Although I think they did a very good job. But yeah, that's my answer.
Maybe after Hawaii, that could be your next undertaking.
Yeah, we'd have to go to South America, but you've worked in South America.
Yeah, it's so beautiful there. Yeah. Can I answer that question too?
Of course.
Because I want to say Arundhati Roy's God of Small Things.
These three, the last ones, are for both of you. Dream dinner guest at Lulu and the Beanstalk.
I would invite, because I'm obsessed with her, is Mother Mary, the Virgin Mary. No. I would have her for dinner. I love her. And then maybe a Greek goddess one of my favorite Greek goddesses.
Who is that?
Minerva.
Okay.
Should it be, Samira's done the fantasy part, so I can do the semi-fantasy answer? Sure. Okay, Sheikh Mohammed.
One film you'd love to screen at Lulu?
None. Okay. It's a sacred space, so we don't do screenings.
Oh, you don't?
Yeah,
okay.
it's when it was very conscious. We were like, we'll separate church and state. Lulu's itself is a movie.
Yeah, we should have cameras in there filming what
Yeah.
happens every day.
Your go-to comfort dish at Lulu?
At the moment, it's I don't know, I like everything, but I think the duck toasty is like the most comfortable item for me personally, because I like fatty, bad food. And then the fries, our fries are so good and simple and yummy.
Yeah.
I'm simple like that. So yeah, it's always the fries. I'm on Manjaro at the moment, so I'm not eating, but yeah, if I was, I'd do that.
Fries, yeah.
Our ravioli at the moment is so good.
It's an artichoke ravioli. Yeah. And shout out to Chef. She's done a very good job with the menu.
One piece of advice that you would give to women who want to go into filmmaking and, restaurant business?
Don't think that you can have it all. And you have to understand that not everything will come all at once, and you have to be okay with that. And that success and failure will come in equal measure in equal seasons. And you have to just be prepared for that.
Yeah. And nothing lasts forever, right? Good times don't last forever. Bad times don't last forever.
Oh, and another one that I'm going to steal from a movie I watched yesterday, Spike Lee's new one. Not all money is good money.
Yeah,
That was
that's a
a very
powerful
good
one.
line.
Yeah.
And Denzel kept saying it. I love him. And I was like, what a good actor. And I was like, this is so powerful.
It is. It really speaks to our experience. My answer to your question would be, don't go into it comparing yourself to others. Focus on you and what you're good at and your own success, because everyone's journey is so different, no matter what you see out there.
And that brings us to the end of the podcast. I'm so grateful for both of you making the time, especially on Lulu's birthday.
Yes.
And really, it means a lot to me.